Hello, folks. How are you guys doing? It is Sharla Kornegay coming live to you guys with another Forever Friends Academy Live. I feel like it's been so long since I've been on here with you guys. Ooh, I'm happy to be back though. November was just eventful and packed, and I really missed you guys. It kept me away from you guys in a good way, but I'm back. I'm back. I'm so glad to be back on with you. Hopefully, I can get some of you guys here on with me to have a nice little conversation. And let me introduce myself just in case there's someone new checking out the podcast. As I always say, I would love. Again, my name is Sharla Kornegay. I am an author, recording artist, creator of Interact Coaching and Forever Friends Academy. This is my show named after the same name, Forever Friends Academy, where we talk about all relationship topics. What I hope you can get from me is that we talk about fundamental principles that you can govern and ground your relationship in, because I am all for creating relationships that will last a lifetime, right? So hopefully that's what you'll get if you're on with me. Welcome to, I see some people already. Welcome. I believe it's Shug, New Jersey. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. And Charlie Mike, welcome to the show. If you want to check out my music, because I am also an artist, a performing and recording artist. On the stage, I go by Sharla K. Definitely just go to Google or go to any of your favorite music platforms. Type in Sharla. That's Sharla with an S, not with a C, and K. And hopefully you will peruse my music catalog and you'll find something that you like. It's Christmas time for a lot of people who do celebrate Christmas, or it's just holiday season overall. If you are a person who likes Christmas music, I did come out with a Christmas album last year titled Snowflakes and Gumdrops. Check it out. Make it a part of your playlist, your Christmas playlist. And so we're going to dive in, folks. First of all, I have an icebreaker for you guys, because tonight's conversation, well, I guess I'll have you guys be the judge, but we can get pretty in depth here. So I like to start off with something light before we go there. So this is like a nice little icebreaker question. So feel free to answer if you want to. I guess, and when I thought of the question, I was like, maybe Charlie, you kind of being nosy. I don't know if they're going to want to tell you that, but I will see. I'm going to put it out there and see if I get any answers. So the icebreaker question for tonight is, what is your most used emoji? What's your most used emoji? Like when, you're texting people consistently, what's the emoji that you use the most, I just figured that's a nice little lighthearted question. I'll start off with me, since I'm being so nosy in y'all business. You don't have to answer, but feel free. Hey, Emily. The emoji that I use, I'm so corny. But I will tell you guys the emoji that I use. Yeah, it's honest. It's honestly the one that I use. It's really two that I use the most, right? So they're prayer hands and a heart. And I usually use them together. And I know people are like, why? Why every time she texts me, she uses prayer hands and this heart? Because, I guess maybe some people, you put it together with certain things, but I put it for everything. So that's my most used emoji, is definitely prayer hands and a heart. I'll text people and then I'll literally, and even if I'm commenting on social media, I legit will put prayer hands and a heart. Oh no, I don't know why I do it. I think, I know it just the heart represents love, and I don't know, I'm praying for you and everything. I'm happy for you. I don't know. Prayers of happiness, prayers for gratitude, prayers for everything. So that's my most two emojis. I'm trying to think if there's another one that I use a lot. No, it's those. It's literally prayer, hands, and heart. So let me know if any of you guys want to answer that question. What's your most used emoji? If it's not too much of a personal question, and maybe you might not want to say it, depending on what it is. But so that you decipher that, whether you want to share it or not. But that's the icebreaker before we get into the, deep topic that we have for tonight. And those who come here often, I usually start off with a quote, and it's we're winding down. I can't believe we're almost at the end of 2024. I feel like does anybody feel the way that I feel? Like this year went by in like a blink. I just can't believe it's going to be 2025, but literally, right? We're right around the corner from 2025. And, those of you who come often, you know that when I'm not singing on stage, I am coaching. I do relationship coaching and performance coaching. And so for my relationship coaching clients, we have been working on, getting ready for the new year, right? Whether it's setting goals or things like that. So definitely, if you're in here, I would love to know if you are thinking about certain things. You might hear questions like, what are you going to leave behind in 2024? And what are you looking to, towards, I guess, either developing or getting into while entering 2025. And so I wanted to have a conversation tonight about definitely insecurities, because I think if there's anything that can thwart someone's impact that they can make in their own personal lives, much less in other people's lives and in the way that they're built to serve, is insecurity. So that's the conversation that I wanted to have with you guys tonight. And I have a quote that hopefully will start to facilitate the conversation. But if you are new coming in, just to have something light before we dive into something more on a deeper level, what is your most used emoji, whether it's on social media or it's, you texting your family and friends, etc. Something light, a little icebreaker question before I, make you go, and make you think on a deeper level. So feel free if you want to share that. I told everyone mine is prayer hands and a heart. If my family members are on here and friends, they will tell you, absolutely. That's literally all I type with or I use for emojis. So definitely answer that question. But I'm going to give you guys the quote for tonight. There's actually two quotes that I came across that I want to get your opinion on. But the first quote, if you're on actually any of the platforms that I'm on right now, I actually made it the title of tonight's show, and it's by Dyer. And the quote goes like this: only the insecure strive for security. Only the insecure strive for security. All right, let me say it again. The quote for tonight, folks, is by Dyer. And the quote goes like this: only the insecure strive for security. Ooh, let me say that again. Only the insecure strive for security. What are your thoughts on that? Sharla, you could say, I don't get it. What is he talking about? Or maybe you do get it and you're like, never thought about it like that. Let me know. Oh my goodness, I am just Tisha. How are you? Beautiful. Thank you for popping in. So that's the quote for tonight. I'm going to give you the other one, but I kind of want to see what your thoughts are on that first one. Again, it goes like this: only the insecure strive for security. And why I think it's so pertinent to talk about it in regards to relationships is because, listen, right? If anybody's been in a relationship, I think one of the most beautiful transformations that happen, or opportunities that our relationships provide for us, whether it be intimate, whether it be on a familial level, whether it be friendship, or even right at work, is that it creates an opportunity for us to, face our insecurities, deal with them, navigate them. It's one of those things that that a relationship can help someone be able to, right, deal with. And I like the quote. Me personally, of course, I'm going to wait for you guys to see what your thoughts are on it. I think it's truthful, and I also like it because there's another quote that I'm thinking of, and I can't think of the person who stated it, but there's a part of the quote that says basically that, the only thing certain in life is uncertainty. And the only thing, that you have to learn how to do is learn how to live with insecurity, hence because life is uncertain. So when I saw this quote that I gave you guys tonight, that only the insecure strive for security, it made me think of that, right? And it also made me think of, and I've had, different discussions with, whether it be in sessions that I have with people who are going through and navigating, dealing with their insecurities or just casual conversations. Oftentimes I'll say to, the people that I'm speaking to that insecurity is such a tricky thing because one, it kind of puts you into a victim-like mentality, but it's actually really the opposite, right? Like, meaning I'll say to them that insecurity is really a self-centered thing, right? And it means that if you can imagine that you have a spotlight that you're turning on yourself, right? You have a spotlight that you're turning on yourself. And in that spotlight, when you put it on yourself, it is, let's just say, maybe it's exposing certain, I don't know what's the best way to say it. It's exposing certain things that maybe that person has either perceived or determined or judged that are not great qualities within themselves, right? And so you basically that person is putting themselves under a microscope. And because that microscope is there, that they put on themselves. Now, when other people come into their space to even say they want to pour into them and say, good things about them, like, oh, you're a great leader, or, oh, no, you're very beautiful or very attractive, or, you pay attention, whatever it is, right? Say that person wants to start to give a different perspective or give a greater, I'm gonna say put them in a greater light. It's hard because the microscope that person has already put on themselves, the light, the spotlight that they've already put themselves in, literally blurs and thwarts what that other person is trying to give to them, right? And the tricky part about it, and you guys let me know if you've ever either experienced this, or maybe whether it's you yourself, or whether it's you having a conversation with someone else, it won't matter what you're saying to the person, because whatever perception that they have married in their minds about themselves literally does not allow them to hear properly what you're trying to say to them. That's literally what insecurity does. And what it'll do is sometimes it'll flip, and make it seem, even though that's what the process of what's going on is, that what's being said is being distorted and being combated by your own, right, insecurity, that now that cycle or pattern that's going on, either within themselves or when they engage with other people, will then now start to say, no one is hearing me. No, I'm not being understood. Or, I want to be heard, or things like that. However it comes, in many different ways. So that's why I like this quote, because it's like, only the insecure strive for security. Because the truth is, the only thing certain is uncertainty in life, right? And I think in understanding that, there is a deep sense of understanding that there is trust that is needed in navigating this process of life. And the deeper the trust, the lesser, right, the insecurity that you'll have. So that's why I like that quote. But I'm going to read some answers, because I think I have some answers coming in. So I want to take out some time to read it. Emily says, I think that quote can be true, not just in relationships, but in general too, due to personal experience. Yeah, absolutely. I always like to hopefully present things that are fundamental and universal, meaning like it's not just in the area of relationships, but you can put it in other areas of life. That's one of the main things that I hope that when you come to me to listen to the episodes and to interact with me, and a aspect that is different in my approach, whether it's us just conversating about relationships, or whether it's clients that I have that come to me to help them navigate their relationship spaces, whether it's their relationship with themselves or others around them, is that we're going to pull out fundamental principles that we can be clear on. Okay, I can put this in other areas. So it's something that's tried and true. So therefore, if I apply it and it's applicable in one area and it's also resoundingly applicable in others, then it's something solid that I can ground myself in. I can put my trust and my faith in it, which is what we want, right? Especially when we're navigating really, relationships are the heartbeat of everything here, but definitely, intimate relationships or familial relationships. You want to have tools and resources and relationship skills that help you in those spaces that can cause a lot of trauma for different, people, for us in life, depending on how the relationships are going. So that's what I like to provide. So I'm glad that you said that, Emily. I also agree with that wholeheartedly. So I definitely love that quote. Only the insecure strive for security. And you know what it reminds me of? I was just talking to someone and I was just giving them the example that, if you are a person who is just well, I'll give you the direct example that I gave them because I think it's the best one that I could have said when I was stating the conversation with them. So I'm not going to paraphrase it or change it or come up with a different example. And it's going to go into the next episode that we're going to have. But I was giving them the example for anyone who knows about the Bible, reads the Bible, knows about Christ. In the Bible, when Christ comes, he makes a statement that says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. I'm the way and the truth and the life, right? No one comes to the Father but through me. And in one of my private group coach sessions, we were talking about whether God's love was conditional or unconditional. And, I told them, no, it definitely is unconditional love. It's not conditions. And when I use that example to say that when Christ is saying that, he's just stating who he is. He's not telling you a condition. He's just telling you who he is. And so I was talking to the person that said, if you're a person, and let's just say you're made of like all this bright light and goodness about you. And let's say there's a person who's next to you who is not. Maybe they're grappling with something. Maybe they feel like there are a lot of voids in them and they're dealing with a lot of things in their life who they feel has drawn them into like this very dark space. You won't have to say anything to that person. Literally, that person can just be next to you and you will feel, right? I guess I don't want to say your nature's at odds with each other, but I guess that's the best way I can think of it right now. You will feel it. That person, you won't have to say, do anything. That person will just feel sometimes a certain uncomfortability just because the two natures are different. And that's what I feel insecurity is, right? It's like if you're battling with insecurity and then you're around someone who maybe is like very, very confident, knows who they are, assured, and goes out and just is like, okay, I'm just going to be me and who cares, what anybody else thinks or you know what I mean? If they're just very secure in who they are, or it's a very trusting individual in life. So even though they know things are uncertain because they put their trust in, whether it's fundamental principles or God, they just know that what they are anchored in is secure, even in the uncertainty of life. And if they are like that in someone else who is struggling and is not, and if that person is not a person who necessarily is a person who sees that and says, okay, this is inspiring me. It's admirable the way that you are and the way that you look at life. If they're not thinking in that manner, then just that person just being is going to be a disturbance to them, either in making them feel inadequate, or sometimes, right, you guys let me know if you've ever experienced this, where the insecurity will cause that person to maybe try to find something to either tear the other person down, or to, you know, misconstrue, misunderstand, however the process happens, to where it's like I have to find something to, you know, demean you or make you seem smaller or less of a bright light than what you are. All right, it comes in many different ways when insecurity is exposed. But I think one of the greatest things, which I'm presenting to you guys, which I hope will do the same, is that when I realize that insecurity is really something that's steeped in self-centeredness. You know, it's different if you look at it and you stay in the vein of where, okay, if a person, oftentimes people see people who are insecure, and then it's almost like, that poor person. You kind of take it on as that person is a victim. And it's not always highlighted that the process that allows that person to get in that type of mind state is there is a self-centeredness within them, that it's hard, that whatever microscope that they have allowed themselves to be under, that now when they navigate around others, they're imprisoned by their own microscope that they put on themselves. So it's hard to now look out and consider, you know, the others around them and their perspectives, and be able to take it in. So one way that I definitely usually always tell my clients, that one way you can deal with it and be able to navigate and kind of handle and you know, deal with the insecurities, is you have to take a step out, you know, and not put that spotlight so much on yourself, to kind of consider others. So one simple thing that I will have them do is to switch the questions that they're asking in their mind. So I'll give you a simple example, which I'm sure many of us probably have said a time or two, or have heard other people say it, is, you know, especially in intimate romantic relationships, marriages and things like that, you might hear someone say, I just want to be heard, you know, this person doesn't see me, or I don't feel understood, and I don't feel heard, and I just need to be heard, and things like that. And so I will say to my clients that oftentimes when we say we don't feel heard, if we can switch it to just say, am I hearing? You know, like, am I hearing correctly? Because oftentimes when we feel like we're not being heard, it's because of that whole pattern, you know, of the internal critic that's inside of us, that we put that microscope on us and we put that spotlight there, that the people around us, if they are saying something that is different from the judgment that we have already been recycling in our minds about ourselves, then it will thwart, it will blur, it will combat the things that they are trying to say to us. So I'll often tell them, instead of focusing on wanting to be heard, ask yourself, am I hearing correctly? Am I hearing what is being said to me? Because if I have been navigating and living my life under a microscope that I have put upon myself, and don't get me wrong, I know there are, like all of us, right? We have we come here and we're thrust in a family that has already certain behaviorisms. It functions the way it is. So of course, yes, when we go through things, those conditions, you know, whether it be through learned, you know, environmental learning and things like that, yes, that we do take some of that on. And in life, we know that as we evolve, especially into adulthood, then the part of us making the choice to create the life that we want for us is no longer placing the accountability on others who have done things to us, but to take full accountability of our own life, to create the life that we want. So to be able to cross that bridge, then we cannot have a victimhood mentality, right? We have to go forward and say, okay, no, this is my life and I'm the one that's got to live it. And I am going to make the choices that are going to be the most optimal and the most beneficial to me. So those things that I experienced as a child, yes, I probably, if I was put into that family, it wasn't my choice. But now, as an adult, growing and evolving, it is most definitely my choice as how I'm going to, right, navigate life. And I don't want to choose to navigate life being imprisoned by my own insecurities, right? And so I asked a question for those of you, some new people coming in. Hey, Michelle. Oh my gosh, hi, beautiful. I haven't seen you in a long, long time. Thank you for popping in. I don't know if you're still in here, but if you are, hey. We are talking about insecurity. And the reason I brought it up tonight is I presented a quote. And, we are entering 2025. And some people are already on it and they are already, putting out their goals to hit the ground running soon as 2025 comes. Some people wait till later, when it's New Year's, it's like New Year's resolutions, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was asking the question tonight to the participants, what are you going to leave behind in 2024? And then what are you going to hit the ground running when it comes to 2025? And I thought presenting how to, first of all, examining and dissecting insecurity for what it is, and it being one of those things, right, where it's like, I'm not going to be imprisoned by my insecurity. I'm definitely going to leave that if that is something that I am struggling with in 2024, right? Because it's going to affect how I see myself, number one. Two, it's definitely going to cause a roadblock in the way you can serve others and the way that you can show up in whatever your talents, your skills, or your gifts are. And so that's what we're talking about tonight. And the quote that I presented at the top of the podcast is by Wayne Dyer, Dyer. And it says, only the insecure strive for security. Only the insecure strive for security. And I think it's a great, great quote. And I think it's so important because I don't know, there's not too many people that I have come across where they haven't had to deal with some kind of insecurity, whether it's in a intimate relationship sense or just within themselves. So hence why I'm bringing up the conversation to you guys. Hey, beautiful diamond. So definitely let me know what your thoughts are. Again, do you agree with the quote? Do you think it's truthful? You can say, Sharla, no, I don't agree with the quote. Give me all the pushback in the world, because that's how we have great conversations. If you need some more clarity on understanding what it means, let me know if that's the case as well. So again, tonight's quote is, only the insecure strive for security. Only the insecure strive for security. And man, it really does ring so true to me, because I'm just thinking, whether it's back to my own experiences, a lot of the spaces that I've had insecurity in is in my singing on stage, because a lot of you guys know that I told you my whole story that I had stage fright from a very, very young age, from the first time that I sung, actually, at 9 years old. And it wasn't a traumatic situation at all. It was my interpretation of it. That's why I love this. I love this conversation we're having, because it's so true. When you have that microscope on yourself, and oftentimes that microscope is there because you have a high expectation on either how you are to experience something or who you feel like you're supposed to be in that moment. And honestly, when I think about that situation, as I've told you guys before, it was a young girl who was a little bit older than me, in the church. I think she was a teenager while I was like 9. And I saw her singing, and she was just, she had a beautiful voice, had a beautiful voice. And I was so entrenched in how the people responded to her. Like, I mean, anybody who's went to church, this was a Pentecostal church, so if you went to a Pentecostal church, right? They don't, there's a lot of shouting, jumping, hallelujah, everything, right? So she sung, and Monique Hicks, and Monique, if you're watching, hey, love, I wouldn't be a singer if it wasn't for her. But she inspired me, and honestly, the audience, though, is what really inspired me, because I said, I'm going to sing, and they're going to do the same thing. They're gonna fall out on the floor. They're going to run up and down the church. I'm going to get a whole bunch of hallelujahs and everything. So I had this whole grand way that as soon as I opened up my mouth and that the people were going to react to me. And yeah, it didn't. First of all, I had this little squeaky Jamaican, little accent voice. I hadn't sung a day in my life. I don't know what I was thinking. Like, I was just going to open my mouth and Whitney Jr. was going to come out. I think in my head, that's what, right? That's not what happened, right? And I didn't do a bad job, but my voice was high pitched and squeaky, and I was not, I had no training. So the people were smiling at me like, oh, she's so cute, right? But I didn't get no hallelujahs. I didn't get no people slaying in the spirit. And so I just read it totally wrong, right? But I'm just using that, hopefully, comical example for you guys to show like a actual process of what I was explaining before, that when someone's insecure, it's really steeped in self-centeredness, because you have this idea, whether it's about yourself or how you're supposed to experience something. And when that does not take place, it's hard, especially if you put yourself under that microscope and you have the spotlight on you. It's hard now to be able, right? It was hard for me to read the room, to see that these people aren't laughing at me. These people they're entertained in a cute, little young girl singing this Christmas song way, right? No, you weren't Yolanda Adams, and no, you weren't Whitney, and you weren't even the young girl who inspired you to sing in that moment. But I read it completely wrong. But there was no way for the audience authentic response to penetrate through to me, because I already was wrapped up in my own expectation. I was already wrapped up in my own vision of how it was going to unfold. I was already wrapped up, right, in my judgment, of who I was supposed to be in that moment and how that scenario was to play out, right? So that's why I say insecurity is more of a self-centered thing, that you put yourself under the microscope, and therefore once you are imprisoned by your own right spotlight that you've put on yourself, that often for many of us, that inner critic, sometimes you just want to put them in jail and throw away the key. It just keeps on coming back, right? That inner critic comes in and literally is like playing Batman, you know what I mean? Like good comments, good positive, comments, or even just a person telling you the truth of how they're experiencing you, right? That inner critic is like, nope. Playing tennis, like combating every word that person is like sincerely, earnestly giving you. And so that's why I say, when we're going through that cycle, that's really what it is. So the way to get out of that is to say, okay, I'm going to turn this spotlight off of myself. I'm going to get from under the microscope of my own judgment so that I can hear what others are saying around me. So I can at least, what's the word I'm looking for? Be open to see the other people's perspective. I think when it comes to insecurity and you've placed yourself under a microscope, you automatically think that whatever that person is going to say is going to affirm whatever low things that you have or sentiments that you have about yourself, when it's not, right? It's not true. So I'm going to take some time because I see some writing going in, which I so appreciate, guys, taking out the time to type. I so appreciate it. I do. I really do. Because typing, hey, listen. And, I have to put, you guys can call in. I'm going to put the number in here so you guys can call in. You can call in and talk to me. I just called to say. Anyway, Michelle, what did Michelle say? Michelle said, not me having insecurities right before this video. Oh, Michelle. Yeah, I want to leave that behind hardcore. The insecurities I have about I understand. Appearance 2025 is more self-love. Absolutely. First of all, I probably should have read that inwardly before I read it out, but I hope you were okay with me saying it out on the podcast in public. I appreciate, first of all, your vulnerability in that way. And I'm glad, I always am looking for signs. I'm always looking to hear, right? I'm practicing what I preach, y'all. I'm always looking to hear that the topic that I chose was some signs to affirm that, okay, Sharla, you are in the right vein, or you in the right direction. So you telling me that when you didn't have to, you could just came on and just decided to say nothing, makes me happy that, okay, all right, Sharla, you're listening. You this was the topic, right topic, even if it was just for you only, Michelle. I'm glad that I decided to come on and talk about it. And something that you wrote, 2025 is more self-love, something that Ben said the other day, which I was like, I'm always copyright infringement, my husband, but you can't sue me. Because I tell him, like, oh yeah, copyright infringement, I'm taking that. So anyway, and look, see, I'm giving him his credit, I'm telling you, I got it from him. So anyway, Michelle, right? We were actually talking about this. I don't know what we were talking about, but we were talking about something about self-love, and he was like, you know what, and it's not even self-love, it's more God. And I was like, when Ben speaks, which is often, and I have like light bulb moments like, oh my God, that's so good. Like not more self-love, more God, Yeah. So I concur that, I agree. I affirm with you, Michelle, definitely in 2025, more God, which allows you to see yourself in the light of right in the way that he truly made you. So I agree with that. Oh, thank you. And she said, Charlotte, I'm so glad you didn't hold back your voice. Thank you, Michelle. I still deal with it. I honestly do. I think singing is one of those things that is like, it's like a labor of love for me. And I think it's because, anyone who's dealt with any kind of trauma. And like I said, right, it was something so simple. It wasn't, I've had trauma in my life. It wasn't that, okay? I can tell you some things that were really traumatic, but that wasn't in the truth of what it was. It really wasn't. It was my distortion of that experience that did not allow for me to see. Right now I could see in hindsight that, oh my God, they were just like, oh, this is just this cute little girl, from Jamaica, high little accent, singing away in the midget. It's cute, right? But I didn't want it to be cute. I wanted it to be heart-stirring, soul-stirring. I want to make you think about your life. I didn't want you to go, oh. And because they were like, oh, I just thought it was a failure. Right? But it wasn't. The truth of the matter is that it wasn't this traumatic situation, but because I put myself ahead of time under the microscope, then those people who were like sincerely receiving the gift that I had in the way that it was most coming to them authentically, I couldn't receive it. And it literally gave me stage fright for so long, to the point where like I still, now thankfully I've evolved to the point where now I know it's like I'll tell God, or ask God. I ain't telling God anything, but I'll ask him to turn my nervousness into power. And of course it has tilted or shifted more so of me just really wanting to make an impact every time I open up my mouth and making sure that I can drop all my fears and all my nervousness to, it's really more so of an honor of the gift now than it is of just like crippling fear that it used to be. So I'm grateful for that. But it is one of those things where, where it's like, because I think I want it to be so, dare I say perfect, like a perfect performance. And if I don't have one, then I'm like, So I appreciate that, Michelle. I so appreciate that. She said that's very true because it's more so about how God created. Yeah, she's talking about the self-love, more God. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So for sure. I love that, Michelle. Definitely. Leaving, insecure, the self-centeredness part of insecurity way back, in 2024 and not allowing that to enter into 2025 is definitely something that we want to do because we want to, I always talk about like positioning and, and I'm working on a third book called Just Right and In Position. And basically the grand message of the book is that, why wish to be good enough when God made you just right? Right. And we strive, as I just said, right, to want whatever our idea of perfection is. Oftentimes we strive for it and then we get imprisoned by it because none of us is going to perfection is not possible. But you can and you are made just right by God. And in the book, I say when God creates everything, he creates everything based on how that thing is purposed to serve. It's just right. And then he places it in position, right? So if you think about the sun, the moon, the stars, the clouds, however you want, whatever, all of the way that God creatively and wonderfully made this world that we live in, and humans in our complex, in all of our complexities, right? We're not inanimate objects, right? So we have, choices to make, and we can navigate this life having, some power of choice in there. So what is our positioning in it, right? And the positioning is to be able to, one, know that the only thing certain in life is uncertainty. And because of that, there is a system of trust that God has already, right, put in this process that we're in. And then when you understand that the system of trust is there and that trust is a primary, one of the most primary resources we have here, and that the more you put your trust in the right things, then the easier it is, right, to have faith in the things that you're going, to do, just how you're able to live in this world, pouring out your gift in the most, maximum level, right? So that's the positioning, right? So it's not like like the sun where it just stays at a certain position, right? It's the positioning, I guess, would be more so of like, what's the positioning? What's your heart posture? The positioning of your faith, things like that, And so when it comes to insecurity, it's kind of like the opposite of faith, right? And insecurity thrives where trust is either not there or the trust is, of course, decreasing. So the more trusting and trust that we have, then the less insecurity can, thrive in a negative way, not in the truth of understanding that in life everything is there's no certainty. Everything, the certainty is that there is uncertainty, right? So in knowing that, but just not having insecurity in a way where it's becoming poison to you. I'll read the second quote that I have for you guys, and then we'll wrap it up so you guys can hopefully have a beautiful rest of your night after talking to me. And this question, sorry guys, this quote comes from Graham. It's either Graham or Graham. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, y'all. Green, Graham, Green. All right. And the quote goes like this. It says, "Insecurity is the worst sense that lovers feel. Sometimes the most humdrum, desireless marriage seems better. Insecurity twists meanings and poisons trust." That's my favorite part of that quote. I'll say it one more time. It's from Graham Greene, and it goes like this. "Insecurity is the worst sense that lovers feel. Sometimes the most humdrum, desireless marriage seems better. Insecurity twists meanings and poisons trust." And so hence why I wanted to say that to you guys, because of what I was just stating, right? That when we are not anchored in trust, then insecurity thrives, right? And you guys always hear it from me, is that there's no trust without truth. And I think that's one of the, if there's a principle to learn, a fundamental principle to learn, to put in your relationship skills, resources bag, that's it. Because many people are fearful of trusting, or say they can't trust this and that person. I can't trust no one. I trust no one but God. Many different ways it comes out of, our mouths, But the truth is that we live in a system of trust, and you're trusting people every day more than you give yourself credit for. It's just when you're hurt that it's like, oh, I'm triggered, I'm hurt. Oh no, I'm bleeding. I'm not trusting nobody anymore because I opened up my heart consciously, right? But we're doing it every day unconsciously. Maybe you're just not thinking about it. Every time you go to the store, you trust someone to not poison your food. Every time you drive on the road and, trust every day, that person's not just going to drive over to the other end, right? We're trusting every single day, and it's because we have to. The system is what it is. Even if you are a person who's have a friend who, unfortunately is kind of crippled by fear, and so she doesn't leave her home. Like, everything's ordered. She just can't go outside right now. Prayerfully she'll, break through. But even in that type of extreme, right, situation, she's still trusting, right? Because whether she owns the home that she has, or if she's renting it, right, there's a system that she's in. Even if the people are bringing the food to her, she still has to trust that the people who packaged it, etc. There's no way to negate it. So the more understanding we are of how to, I guess the best way to put it is putting our trust, or trusting in the right way, is, okay, what is truthful? Let me anchor my trust in there, So what is truthful helps to empower how I see people, how I see things, how I see the grand scheme of life. And so it allows me to trust in a different way. Many people will call it maybe in a discernful way, etc. But you have to trust, and it's important, because the less trust that you have, the more room insecurity has to thrive. So in order for us to not let insecurity, or for us to be imprisoned by our own insecurities, we need the trust to help empower us to move in faith. so that we can navigate this world being all of who we really are and not threatened by someone else who comes into our space, who exudes a certain light, to them, or is very secure, is very confident in what they do. We won't compare in a way where we feel lesser than, because you already have the understanding, going back to what I was saying in regards to the book that I'm writing, that you understand that you're made just right. And it does not matter if that person is doing a very similar thing to you. When God creates something, he doesn't make a duplicate. So however you're going to present it to the world is going to automatically make it come out different. And so when you understand that, and you understand that if you don't do it, then we just miss out on how that gift, that talent, that skill, that truth, whatever it is that you're doing would come through you versus the next person, right? And so therefore you don't feel threatened by another person's presence, or how or their capacity, I should say. So that's what we are talking about tonight, folks. But I love the end of that last quote that I read to you guys by Graham Greene, because I think it's so true. Insecurity twists meanings and poisons trust. Oh, it does. I just keep going back to thinking about myself when I, dropped the mic and ran, because it twisted the meaning of my own insecurity that I had, that was heavily grounded in my own expectations of how I saw, my performance playing out, created like a self-sabotage for me, for myself, because it twisted the meaning. And that's why I say, again, if you leave here with nothing else, I would hope that you would leave with the understanding that what really fuels insecurity is a self-centeredness about it, right? Meaning, again, that you put yourself under your own microscope. And maybe it is because, like I said, you have an expectation about something, the way you envision something playing out, or you experiencing something, or how you imagine yourself to be. When you have that, it's hard to now live in the present moment so that you can be able to really take in the response that people are giving you, because it can't combat with the judgments, the things that you've already placed upon yourself. So the way to, again, branch out of that is simply by kind of, when you hear yourself and you're listening to yourself and you're hearing a lot of I just want to be heard. I just want to be seen. That's when you start to know, okay, I see, I see the self-centered part of it. And just kind of ask yourself and think about it, especially for anyone who is, either, I was going to say on the dating scene, but honestly, whether and you're married too, this will work as well. You really want to approach a conversation and communicating and really being in a relationship and navigating with not so much of I want to be heard, I want to be seen, but that I want to hear. I want to see, I want to observe, I want to learn. Because when you navigate those spaces with that type of mindset and mentality, you automatically put yourself in a position to learn more, and you automatically kind of take yourself out of a victimhood mentality, because you're already switching your mindset to more so of a like an initiator. The victim is like you react to things that, have been done to you or are being done to you. But when you take yourself out of that and then you say, okay, I strive to kind of hear and listen correctly and, receive what that person is saying to you. Now, don't get me wrong, if it's in a toxic type of nature, that's why I say trust cannot be, it has to be anchored in truth, right? So that would be one of the first fundamental things is, okay, how do I, have the understanding or put on the eyes where I can know certain things in life that are godly, good in nature, truthful, resounding, principles in life that I can then have my trust anchored in that so that I can navigate, right? Because if it's a toxic relationship, then yeah, you have to, that's not something you want to receive, because the information is going to be toxic to you, especially if you already are a person who has, certain cyclical thoughts about yourself that are low or not really the truth about who you are. So that's a different that's a different situation that you'd have to remove yourself out of that and then get around people who can esteem you, and support you through a process to where you can gain to esteem yourself, But if you are not in a situation like that, which sometimes people aren't, and it's still, we create our own blockages, where we won't hear what our spouse or our partner or people who really do care about us, what they are saying to us, we won't receive it because we are already, imprisoned by our own insecurities. So that's a good little small simple technique that you can use. Michelle says insecurity expectations can execute, kill off, take away from the truth of what the moment is, serves and entrap you from executing. Absolutely. And it can execute your execution. Oh, that's good. That's good, Michelle. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, she said it can execute your execution, and that's honestly what it is. I, it's the truth. Like if you can, I love using visualizations. I use it a lot with my clients and definitely with myself. But I love her statement of that it can execute your execution, because honestly, if you can envision that if you're having a conversation with someone and you already are leading with, I want to be heard, I want to be seen, because maybe you don't feel like you are. When that's there, when someone's speaking to you, and even if they're trying to tell you something that's positive, or even if they're trying to tell you something that's just truthful, literally imagine if there's a sniper, sniper maybe coming from your brain or on your shoulder or something, and literally just shoots, the word that they're trying to give you down, because the insecurity has to protect itself at all costs, and the fear is that whatever they're going to say is going to affirm something that's already under the microscope within yourself, so and that's again going back to the first quote that we read, only the insecure strive for security. That's what it is, right? It's like, don't rock don't rock this boat. And a part of rocking the boat is that if I take in what you're saying, if I cannot go through the proper process of actually hearing correctly what you're saying so that it can either serve me in the best way, or it can enlighten me or empower me, etc. If I don't know how to kind of the process of what that looks like, then what you're saying to me is just going to affirm what I already think about myself. And then it's going to do like a switch and bait kind of situation where now I'm going to then project that on you and say, you were the one who, who made me feel this about myself. And it's it's a doozy. It's a doozy. And many of us, in of course, different areas have had to, right, navigate it and be able to deal with it so that it doesn't consume us, and stop us from, as Michelle said, being wholeheartedly present and executing what we're born to execute, So that would be the process. So definitely, if you're thinking about and you're setting your goals before, writing down whatever those goals are that you're aspiring to fulfill in the new year, start there, start as far as the character transformation and the development, if it's something that you've been dealing with, whether it's within yourself or whether it's just within the relationship the relationships that you keep, that you want to, take the microscope off yourself, and spotlight off of yourself. It's very different from, in my book that I wrote, 7 Stages of Love and Relationships, I talk about vulnerability extensively. And in the book, I say that, vulnerability is so hard for people at times, for us, because we automatically just think about what we have to expose, what we're going to say, and things like that. And honestly, that's not really, really the most core and fundamental part of vulnerability. And in the book, I say vulnerability is to God first, you second, and then third, the people who get to engage with you. They get the reward and the effect of somebody who is authentically walking in who they are, right? So it's not about what you say. It's about your ability to expose yourself and allow God's light to let all the shadows, right, disperse the illusions, of love, the illusions of all the false perceptions of who you think you are, maybe the things that happen to you, etc. The light of God's love allows those things to disperse, and then it's this beautiful, like you can take a breathe, you can take a nice deep breath and still stand in the truth and the light of who you are. And then, right, that frees you. And then now when you meet someone else, they just get the reward, right? So they're like the third, they're the third part of it. But when we think of vulnerability, that's the first thing we think is like, oh my gosh, what am I going to have to say? And what am I going to tell? No, that's actually the after effect of what the real, true, earnest process of vulnerability is. It allows for any crippling insecurities and false perceptions about you to disperse, and then allows for you to anchor yourself in the trust that's needed to navigate this world, to do wholeheartedly what you need to do in faith so you have the impact, the authentic impact that you will have in the world to the people who are, who think what you have to offer is just right for them, So hopefully something that I said tonight, help. Well, I know Michelle, I can get off line feeling good that I helped one person and that this was the right message for them tonight. So I appreciate that. And if there is something that you wanting to start and you don't feel, quite perfect in it, as polished as you want to be, trust me, I know the feeling, because there are a lot of things that I do that I don't quite feel as polished in. But, you do it, and I will say that the kinks will work itself out, and it doesn't have to be polished. It just has to be true and earnest and sincere, and fueled by who God has called you to be, and it'll get better in time. So at least have your mind focused on whatever it is that you're aspiring to do, to not let any insecurity block you from doing it. Right? And that includes the relationships that we have. So, all right, but absolutely adore all of you guys. It's been a while, so I'm happy that I got to get on with you guys tonight. And I should be back on. I don't think anything's going on. Maybe I say that out loud. I don't think anything's going on. I feel like every weekend in November, there was something going on. I was like, help. And before I get off with you guys, and I didn't even post any pictures, I'm going to post some for my birthday. My birthday is November 23rd, and Ben took me to see Jennifer Hudson. Oh my gosh. You know what? I'll end with her because, first of all, she has like trumpets and horns in her throat, y'all, in her vocal cords. It's trumpets and horns. She don't need a mic, y'all. No mics necessary, okay? Her voice is like just thunder. Oh my goodness, And she's a perfect person to end on because I just remember we both, Ben and I, had moments where we were just like so engulfed in her singing, and she was singing one of my favorite songs that she sings because she came out with a Christmas album. I don't remember the title right now, but on the album is the song Hallelujah, and she sings that. Oh my goodness, that was the one. I think my phone died. I was so upset. My phone died because I couldn't record it, but I'm actually low-key, I'm kind of happy it did because I was able to kind of like, really focus in on. But then I asked Ben, I was like, oh, could you record it for me on on your phone because my phone died so I can have it? He was like, yeah, sure. But he was so engulfed that he was like, I'm sorry I didn't record. I was like, it's okay. But I'm using her as an example of everything that we just talked about, right? And that was something that I really gleaned from her. And as she was performing, I was praying for myself, like, God, please allow me to be this much in my skin. When I tell you she was so much in her skin, we were in Brooklyn at King's Theater, and it was a nice audience, pretty much almost packed show, and she was going through the audience. She was talking to them while she was singing and taking pictures, and she was just in her own skin. And then she'd open her mouth, and then it just sounded like this angelic force to be reckoned with of an angel would just come out, and you can just tell that she just doing what God gifted her to do and just engaging and relating with the people and just being herself, And so I was just like, oh, that's the space that I want to be in every time that I hit a stage and I perform. And so I remember saying the prayer to myself, like, Sharla, 2025 for me, when it comes to song, is that me as a singer, I have to marry the song, right? Like, I don't want to utter a note or anything like that if I'm not married, like where me and the song is one. That is my only goal as a singer in 2025. So like, get out your head, doesn't have to be perfect, just one with the song, right? And because that's what she was with like everyone. She was just herself, and it was great. And you can tell everyone in the audience loved it because of that. So figured I'd end with her because she is like the opposite of what I started with when talking about insecurities as a person. And I'm sure she's human like us. We have our things, but when she hit that stage, she was her, and it afforded a lot of freedom in her skills and her talents and the way that she was able to move and affect us in the audience. So it applies on stage, and I think it applies in so many other areas of life as well, So I'll leave you guys with that. Let me read the little new I think it's Emily that typed something. So let me read that before I get off, and then we will end the episode for tonight, guys. And I should be on Sunday. I just remember Ben saying it was some kind of Christmas party. I think it's on Saturday. I'm not sure. If it's not, I will be here with you guys on Sunday. If not, then it will be next Thursday. So, Emily. Oh, she just says she loves Jennifer Hudson. And then she said about the quote, I agree with it because even when you're receiving reassurance, if something about the tone or something is wrong, you'll think that the person is lying. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I say just envision like a little sniper. Like, seriously, you can literally do little small exercises. And I know I have done this in the past where if somebody just says, oh, you're beautiful, or, oh, you did that very well. And sometimes we'll just like, for no reason, not take it in, like not receive it, or like, oh no. It's just pay attention to yourself, when that's happening, and just imagine the sniper. And if you see the sniper is trying to is trying to, shoot down the positive, feedback that a person is giving you, or even if it's not feedback, just positive affirmation that they're giving you, or even a truthful one, right? Because sometimes we don't want to hear a truthful thing that someone's saying, because oftentimes insecurity will come, and I call them noble insecurities, where it's like, oh, I don't want to hurt that person's feelings, or I'm playing political correctness right now. I want to be politically correct. And unfortunately, that creates insecurity. It creates weak people that create a weak community and weak nation when we do that. And so we don't want to do that. If you can't, why? When you can receive the truth, right? It is because which is something else, copyright infringement from my husband, that he says that the truth hurts less when you're made of it. And I find that to be true. So it's like, if you can take the truth in, then that means you have some, fortitude within yourself to be able to take in information from the people who are giving it to you, and be able to allow it to serve you in the best way to build you up. But if you don't, and you kind of shy away from it, or you allow that sniper to shoot it down, then you're just it just means that you think weak of yourself, that something that someone can say to you can be so debilitating that you cannot see the truth of who you are outside of it. And that's a muscle that we're going to have to build anyway, because yes, we're going to have people who are around us. I pray most of us do have a support system that is going to, affirm the positive things that are inside of us, and then tell us the truth about the things that we need to develop and improve. But then there are going to be other people that we meet, right, that will say awful things, disrespectful things, rude things. And we want to have enough wherewithal, enough practice where we're able to, let those things either roll right off of us, know that they're not true. I don't know whether combat, it depends on the situation, but be able to combat it with truth, but not, curl up and ball up in insecurity. So it's just necessary, all around. And she said also, and that would therefore confirm your insecurity. Yeah, absolutely. That's going along with her statement that she said. Anyway, about the quote, I agree with it because even when you're receiving reassurance, if something about the tone or something is wrong, you'll think that a person is lying, and that would therefore confirm your insecurity. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it would. She said, I wish I could sing like her. It's yeah, she's phenomenal. She definitely knows she has a gift, and she knows she was definitely sent here. She said during the show, she was like, either I'm gonna talk you down or I'm gonna sing you down, which I thought was funny, which is, a nod to, she has her own talk show now. So she's like, do the talk show on the weekdays and now sing on the weekends. So it was great. It was, she was a phenomenal show. Anybody, I don't know if she still has, tour dates or show dates in regards to her Christmas concert, but she was a great performer, great show all around. So I would definitely recommend it to anyone to go and see her. Yeah, and Emily said, don't be an overthinker, guys. Observance is a blessing and a curse. Yeah, true indeed. As the Bible says, what does the Bible say? That I don't know whether it's wisdom or knowledge is sorrow. It's one of those. But I can understand. I think it's definitely more of a blessing than is, and I don't want to say a curse. I would just say that when you put yourself in a position to be open to hear and to listen and want to listen correctly, rather than being self-centered and thinking about yourself, just wanting to be heard, that it does put you in a space and a positioning to acquire more wisdom and acquire more knowledge. And the more you do have that, yes, sometimes when you look out into the world and you see people grappling, and stuck in certain states of or conditions in life, yes, sometimes it can be saddening. I won't say it's a curse, but I will say that, yes, it can cause grief at times, But I always say I would never want it another way. I wouldn't want it another way. I think when you understand that, to me, I will say this for me, the most, and I think I just wrote it on one of my recent posts that said if someone could describe me, I would want them to describe me as she is an ambassador of God's love, His truth, and His wisdom. And so for me, I think the most priceless thing is when you have an ear that is able to hear, right? From God, hear the truth and things like that, and then be able to convey it to others, I think is the true wealth. There's actually a story in the Bible, and I don't want to say it to you guys because I'm forgetting which prophet it was, but there are prophets in the Bible, and there was a prophet who was interpreting, I want to say, I want to say this is Daniel, but I'm not certain, so I don't want to put out there. I'm not going to put a name because I have to double check it and come back with you guys. But the gist of the story is that basically there was a king who had a dream, and I almost want to say it's Daniel, but there was a king who had a dream, and he brought in an interpreter who could hear from God, basically. And he said, if you, interpret this dream, that basically he would, give him a position. He was a king, and so he'd give him a position, of course, give him wealth and things like that. And the story really blessed me because in the story, the guy who's interpreting the dream basically says, I don't need your wealth because I have God's ear. You know what I mean? Like I hear from God. Like, what are you going to give me that's greater than that, right? Like all of your wealth, with all your wealth and riches, you are still calling upon me to be able to translate your dream. So who's really rich here, right? And so he literally was like, I don't need that, but I'm going to interpret your dream. Unfortunately, the way the story goes, in the interpretation of the dream, he basically said that God was not pleased with him and that he would die, and he wasn't too happy with the interpretation. I'm almost certain it was Daniel. But, and eventually that's what happened. And then he eventually, even with him declining, him giving him a position, he ended up having a noble and, worthwhile position there and still hearing from God. And so I say all that to say that I understand what you're saying, Emily, when you say observance is a blessing, and in her sentiments a curse. In my sentiments, it can be saddening. It can bring grief to you sometimes. Just when you see the prevalence of unconsciousness ruling the lives of people who might not know what they're in, but all, the honor is in the experience of being in tune, to hear and from God, and to gain the wisdom. So, all right, so I'm going to get off. Hopefully you guys leave reflecting on, being able to kind of like, I guess process insecurities and knowing how to kind of deal with them, and being able to, walking fully who you are, definitely going into 2025, and especially if you are a person who is jotting it down and, focusing on those goals. So, all right. Good night, Michelle. I'm so glad you joined. Miss you, love. And always, Emily, you are always, so great with the conversation and all your insights that you give. I appreciate it. Yeah, and thank you guys. I adore you guys too, all right? So have a good night. Until next time. I'll be back on, all right? If you are new and you heard anything that you like, definitely go to my Forever Friends YouTube channel and click that like, subscribe, and share the video, right? Because we're about to get into 2025. People want to feel more, walk with faith and less insecurity. Definitely pass the video on, okay? And let people know that there's this, singer/coach that comes on live, and you'll enjoy her conversations, and she'll give you some things that you can apply to your life. So if you want to do that, which I'd appreciate, just share it. And if you want to dive a little bit deeper than just what I generally talk about here, and more specific to your own life, definitely check out my Forever Friends Academy, where I do group coaching sessions as well as private one-on-one and couples sessions. All right, so until next time, folks, I'm out. I'll see you later. Always remember to live, to love freely. Until next time, bye, guys.